All right, let's look at some other issues. New South Wales Deputy Premier Mr Barilaro has written to Federal Water Minister Keith Pitt requesting a meeting of state and federal water ministers. He's hoping for an emergency allocation of irrigation water to farms within the southern Murray Basin. And he's demanding that we don't waste the opportunity that this coronavirus crisis has given us to take stock and reassess what sort of Australia we want to be in the future, one that makes and grows things and exports to the world, or one like we are increasingly becoming that imports everything from overseas to the point that we risk, in a crisis, our ability to cope. Mr Barilaro joins me now from Canberra. All right, John, thank you very much for your time. Happy Easter to you and your family. I want to start, if we can, with water. You say we've got to allow farmers to use more of the water in our river systems, growing food, keep the economic wheels turning when so much else has ground to a halt. How are you going to make that happen? Convince me. I want to be optimistic here because I've got to say common sense has not prevailed in the past.
Well, Peter, thank you, and happy Easter to you. It's clear that we've been battling the Murray-Darling Basin Plan for a long time, and we know it's flawed. We know it's flawed when we're seeing water rush through the river systems down to the lower lakes of South Australia and out to the ocean. And then in Sydney, we've got a desal plan where we pump it back in, desalinate it and put it back into our dams because we were going through the worst drought. And even in the worst drought, the millennium drought, there was always some level of water given to irrigators to plant a crop under general security. Yet, this will be the third year that our irrigators and our croppers won't get a water allocation under their general security licence, which means they can't plant a crop. And at a time of crisis, when countries like Vietnam and Thailand have closed their borders and are no longer exporting rice, and we, unfortunately, as a nation, import rice, we have the ability to grow rice. All we've got to do is add water, yet we've put the environment before people and we've put the environment before farmers. And that's what has to change. And I think with the change of Minister and Keith Pitt, and my conversations with Minister Pitt in the past, I'm confident that he has more common sense and that we can and we should use this crisis to actually let us have a water stimulus that allows our farmers to grow the food and fibre that we need as a nation to survive.
Well, I've got to underscore your frustration. I can sense it in your voice about the former minister. I might say he's a member of your own party and he's now in agriculture. The current new water minister, you mentioned there, Keith Pitt's also on your side of politics inside the National Party. So there's this coalition of support, if I can call it that, at least on paper, in relation to the National Party ministers being in positions to make this work. But I tell you, we've spent over $300 billion in just about a month dealing with coronavirus at a Commonwealth level. But when anyone's wanted to spend $14 billion to build a Bradfield water scheme or a version of it, everyone said, oh, it's far too expensive. It beggars belief. How on earth are you going to kick some sense into these politicians, state and federal?
Well, sometimes a crisis brings the best policy decisions. If you think back to 1919, the Spanish flu, or of course our wars, it was post those periods that we built some of our irrigation schemes like the Murray irrigation area or the Snowy scheme, because we understood clearly as a nation that we needed to manage our water in a way so we could grow the food to sustain this nation, the growth of this nation, and furthermore, it became a great trade product for us. Our food and fibre is in high demand right across the globe because of our green, clean credentials. We have the best farmers and produce the best produce. That's why I've always said, we're not just going to be the supermarket for Asia. We can be the delicatessen, high value, top quality produce. But we need to give our farmers the ability to do that. And I believe off the back of this crisis, if anything as a nation, we must learn that we've got to become more self-sufficient, self-reliant in manufacturing, in food production, not just for export, but grow the sector. To do that, put ideology aside and give our farmers the water they need to feed this nation. And the reality is this: last year, Wyangla Dam, 22 gigs was let down the river system right past all these irrigators and farmers for the environment, for environmental flows. And we've got examples where it actually flooded in some parts of the river system, down into the lower lakes and out to the ocean. This is ideology at its best. The environment never loses, it's communities, and we've got communities on their knees with water restrictions because of the drought. and furthermore, irrigators. This is the time, this is the season that we need a water stimulus, and I'm encouraging the federal government, and I'm going to go as far as the Prime Minister of this nation, because I actually believe that Prime Minister Morrison is someone that has common sense, and he has proved over and over again when he came to the table to build the dams for the future. He partnered with New South Wales, and now we've got 3 dams ready to be commenced, and that is the first in this nation in real terms. Well, I'm confident the Prime Minister has common sense when it comes to water for our irrigators, and I'll give Minister Pitt the opportunity to pitch that, and we'll have those meetings in the days ahead.
I'm looking at Queensland, where the Premier up there is spending over $100 million to make a big dam small. This is cut its capacity in half around Bundaberg. You've got a situation where the ACTU is sitting down with the Federal Industrial Relations Minister and carving up a deal out of the corona crisis on awards. Yet you've got a whole lot of National Party MPs or coalition MPs who can't sort out water. How confident are you that they really will, John Barilaro, get this through their head? They've got a window, a moment in time with this coronavirus issue to really put Australia's manufacturers first and to put Australia's farmers and food and fibre producers first.
Well, look, I'm confident post this crisis, manufacturing will get a reboot. We're not going to be manufacturing fridges and toasters. I accept that. But when it comes to advanced manufacturing or manufacturing, especially medical supplies, there is no reason we can't compete. Of course we can compete with the world. We've got some of the best advanced manufacturers globally here in this country, off the back of mining, off the back of our defence industry. These industries have been built. They're ready to go, and they are now assisting the government in manufacturing product locally. But this is the time and this is the chance. And it's simple. If we don't fix this issue around water, let's make this clear. The public, they've seen the media coverage on this. I've been speaking about this for a year. I gave the federal government until March when they promised to come back with some further results in relation to fighting for Team New South Wales. And I made it absolutely clear that if they don't, I'll tell you what will happen. They will rise in the streets of the Riverina in Griffith and Deniliquin. They will rise with pitchforks, because what we are robbing these people and the generations is the opportunity to feed this nation. And I'll tell you what, Peter, I'll be at the front of that line with my own pitchfork, because now is the time, and I want the Australian public to understand this, now is the time that we need to use our water for this nation, to feed this nation. And I tell you what, time has run out, but I'm confident we can get there if we put ideology aside. We need Susan Ley at the table as the Federal Environment Minister, and I'll deal with the issues in New South Wales.